Alright, so I wanted to share a bit of behind the scenes into one of my productions and one of my songs that I've more recently finished. I was looking back on some of the older works when I was trying to figure out what kind of songs to break down, and I just realized that within a span of even 5 months, my production style and the techniques and my knowledge has just increased exponentially. I realized just how far I've come, and I think it's a testament to the fact that you need to just be persistent. You need to keep going, and you need to just keep making music and keep producing, because it's the only real way to get better and to keep improving. You forget that there's so many other small details that the production is a part of, and it's what brings the song to life. And so it requires a different level of creativity and a different level of awareness. So these are just things that I guess I've learned as I'm going through, and I thought I'd share some of these ideas and hopefully you guys will like it. So I'm just going to play through the song production, and then I go through some of the elements that I was really fond of. Let's start with the guitars. I DI all my guitars. I have recently started I found a couple of pedals lying around, old pedals that I had bought maybe 5 or 6 years ago off Marketplace. And so one's just a compressor, one's a tuner, and another one is a drive gain pedal. And so that just gives me the initial kind of compressed signal, which I will then DI straight into a Tonex amp simulator. So initially I used to use Amplitude, but I just found that the upgraded Tonex simulators are far superior, and they just sound fuller and less kind of tinny and outdated. So I've been using that going into, let me just see here, going into a Pro Q, using Soothe 1176. Got some basic saturation drive just to help with the higher end, and I've just put a bit of a limiter on, so then when it gets to the louder parts it just tames some of the transients and it keeps the signal on the left and right pretty consistent, because I've double tracked both of these and panned it out left and right wide just to give me more of a sense of width and space. For the bass guitar, let's have a look. So bass was a straight DI into it as well. I'm using a Tonex bass simulator, this time a cleaner simulator. Same thing with Soothe, just to tame some of the simulator artifacts. Then I'm going into a pull tech, which is boosting in the low frequencies and attenuating that back down a bit, and then a bit of a high frequency boost just to get a bit more of the detail out of the fingers and the string detail for the notes. And then I'm just going to a general leveling amplifier just to smooth out the signal overall and to prevent less of the fluctuations and spikes dynamically. I found that the DI recording for this song particularly wasn't that great, so I didn't really find it very pleasant in the low end. So I preferred to keep some of that character and clean note detail from the DI itself, which is here. And then I'll add the simulator on top of it, which fills it out, and you can kind of blend that in. So without the detail, and then with the detail, you kind of get that percussiveness a bit more that the bass is known for. So, all right, onto the pianos. I tend to hide a lot of my tracks here as well. So once I'm done with the MIDI, I like to keep everything, but just deactivate it, so then I can still go back to it as a reference point if I ever want to re-record something. And so with the pianos themselves, for the main hook and riff, I had the guitar basically playing the main hook that I wanted for the song, and the pianos are basically just reinforcing that hook and giving it a bit of space and giving it a bit of character and vibe to the whole song. Hell yeah. So the sounds for this hook, Vapor Keys, it was a free plugin that I got with a purchase that I had from a store. So I don't know what plugin it was, but I think it was just a random free one that I got from a website. Very 80s disco vibe, has awesome space, and really it pierces just through and just underneath the guitar itself. The guitar line is just another, this time it was amplitude. I think I was using amplitude because of the effects built into it. Yeah, okay, so I've got the Tone X amp still, but I'm able to now rad it with reverb, Sans amp pedal, and then compress that signal out with the amplitude inbuilt 2A. So you get this kind of really nice spacey sound. I think I might have added extra reverb onto this as well, yeah. Reverb and an S1 imager, so with the reverb and the imager, it just pushes the reverb out into the space, into the sides, and it keeps it away from that middle, so it doesn't disguise the guitars and doesn't disguise the bass too much. I don't want it to get too muddy, especially with already reverb being on the initial signal itself. It's just enough to fade it in. With the drums, I recorded that at my mate's place. I initially had used MIDI drums to design the actual beat itself, and then I wanted to re-record them live because it just sounds nicer and I get a bit more variation, as well as it allows my friend to be involved and use some of his creativity and take it away with his ideas, so I can get some change and development throughout the song, which MIDI drumming doesn't really give you that as much. So with this itself, the first kick and the first snare are the live recordings themselves. So I think with the recording setup, I had 2 overheads, one kick drum mic, and then 1 snare drum mic, and then I had 1 microphone basically just above the kick drum facing the drummer and looking down more towards the toms. So that's my tom room mic right here. So what I wanted for that tom room mic was to capture the room itself, but also focus more on the toms, which were just beneath it. Last time when I did the recording at his place, I didn't have this tom room mic, so I was finding that I was having weaker toms and I didn't have anything to blend into the fuller sound, and I was having to really make up with it with samples. So now with each of the kicks and the snares, I've added 2 samples to trigger that were printed, and basically I made sure that they're all phase aligned, and they just help beefing up the actual kicks themselves, because the microphones that I was using were pretty cheap anyway, so I knew it was never going to be an amazing recording. So it was more to capture the vibe of the song and the drum kit, and then I'd use samples to fill out where things lacked, and it's typically where the kick and snare come. Then bring in the overheads. Without the samples, this is what it sounds like. I'll bring in the tom room mic as well. It's a pretty legit recording, yeah. And just for a bedroom recording. Now we bring the kick and snare in. And just fills out, gives a bit more oomph. If I take out the tom room mic right here, you can probably hear how thin it sounds now without it. And if I add that tom room mic in, just makes a difference. It just goes from being like this to being like that. What else haven't I gone through? All right, let's go through some of the vocals then to wrap up. Let's go through the harmonies. Harmonies are more interesting. On all the harmonies, I've just got a de-esser and just auto-tune working very mildly, because I don't want too much variation in the auto-tune, but I also don't want it to be too robotic that it sounds perfect. So I have it operating at like 30%, de-essing pretty heavily between 4.6 to 7.7 kilohertz. That just gets rid of any S's and pulls it out of the way. So if I play that here together with the lead.
I'm on the right track, can't look back. Off of the floor, there's a new town waiting for me to explore.
I don't like de-essing just on the group level. I just find that de-essing on the individual tracks gives me more control over it, and then I can do a group level DS overall. I can be a bit more aggressive with the individual track ones without it disturbing the overall group harmony, and then I'll do a more gentle overall de-essing for the harmonies just to keep the S's out of the way from the lead vocal. In terms of the production on this, I've got a Q3, I've got an RX D mouth click. You can also just cut out the noises in between. I just wasn't bothered to do that just then, so I used the RX just as a way to speed up the process. I'm using a console SSL for general EQ and character, just to run it through that analog character. Soothing out the sibilances again. 1176, just to compress it all together. I've got neutron exciter around 10k plus, pushing it in the tube space just to give it a bit more high-end ring and let it stand out a bit more. And then this is my overall group de-essing, which you can see here.
I'm on the right track, can't look back. Off of the floor, there's a new town waiting.
So it's at 7k, but the curve is wide enough to really move between below 4k and upwards of 10k, but it will trigger around this position and take anything left and right of that. So I wanted to try a bit more sound design work on the harmonies rather than just doing the harmonies as pure recordings. I wanted to try process and get my production skills, give them a challenge. So I thought of different ways to pitch down. Initially I pitched down these initial lower octave vocals, and then what I decided to do was throw it. So this is a little altar boy pitch down, so 12, and I've also distorted the formant just to make it more in line with the actual octave pitch down. And then I've put the voice through a guitar rig simulator for lo-fi delight, and reamping a vocal gives a very unique and distorted effect. And so with and without that, you get a bit more grit and distortion and gain, and you hear the lower. This is the clean version, just pitch down. And then with, yeah, it was a really cool experiment, and it came out pretty well. So in the grand scheme of things, just grounds the song. All these little chops here that you can see, I've basically just aligned the harmonies to be more in time with the vocal. Some of the takes were a bit off, and so as the words were going, especially in a faster lyrical song, the harmonies were not catching it at the right time, so you started to hear a bit of a split effect, and it was a bit distracting. And I wanted the harmonies to be more in line, particularly when the words are moving quite fast. So I was just shuffling the words in the chorus in the different parts just to make sure that the harmonies were more in sync, and it kind of grabbed onto the vocal and helped enhance the lead vocal.
Off of the floor, there's a new town waiting for me to explore. Bet it hurts to see me living without you at all, I'm sure. 'Cause I'm starting at the
vocal chain for this, I think each song that I've been doing, I've been experimenting with different vocal chains, so I'm still trying to figure out like what I like and how to get a decent vocal sound in this room, because the recordings tend to be quite harsh or nasally, especially when I record inside the cupboard. It reflects pretty poorly, and although it helps remove some of the room space and the sound, it still doesn't really give me the best quality. But you got to make do with what you've got. So in isolation, I've got a Pro Q3, I've got Soothe, more de-essing, 1176, to KC1.
It's cold, but
What I'll do is
still
I'll let the song go as I'm adding them on.
but I'm still waiting. Amber lights caught between a lie and knowing. Change moves like a hurricane. You better prepare before you're blown away. Nothing ever stays the same. No one ever takes the blame. I'm on the right track, can't look back. Off of the floor, there's a new town waiting for me to explore. Bet it hurts to see me living without you at all, I'm sure. 'Cause I'm starting at the ground.
With this Manny American one, it's the only EQ that I found that has a 25k notch. So I shelf at 25k and boost at around 4 dB. It gives a more subtle high-end boost more to the lower frequencies beneath 25k, because obviously you're shelving your way up on 25. I didn't mind the high end that it added. It was quite subtle.
'Cause I'm starting at the ground floor every day. Run away, can't even sleep, fantasize another reason that you had to leave.
That's basically it. Oh, the last thing, guitars. Okay, at the end, the guitars, the acoustic guitars that I've got are basically just playing the chords to give it some backing. But another layer I wanted to add to the final chorus was these plucking guitars. It just creates a bit of interest towards the end and gives that sense of finale. And that's it. So that was Ground Floor. I've got 10 songs in the pipeline, basically done, but need to be mixed and mastered, and that's been a bit of an experience and a learning curve for me. So it's taken a bit longer because I've wanted to give it a bit more attention to detail, and I've learnt a lot throughout each of the processes, and it's actually influenced my production. So I didn't want to rush these songs, but I know they're never going to be great mixes and final outcomes because I'm still learning, and while I could get someone better than me to do it, I think it's really important and really useful skills to learn all the processes and parts of making a record. Then once you're comfortable and you understand that and you have more savviness with that whole record making process, then you can start to bring other people on, and if you can afford other mixers and engineers, then get them to do it for you, which I can't. So I'm on the DIY grind, fully independent, and although it takes a lot of time, it's been such a rewarding experience, and I hope an informative experience for you guys. So if you have any other questions, or if you want more details like this, breakdowns, please let me know. I really appreciate all the support that you guys have been showing so far, and I'm here to stay. I'm here to keep putting stuff out on YouTube and other social media platforms, and I'm here to start putting out my music. So hope you guys will enjoy it, and thanks for sticking around.